In the endless silence of the desert, a young Rango walked with nothing but a torn cloth bag and the weight of memories. Too heavy for his small heart, the sun scorched his back, the winds cut across his skin, but he didn't stop. Every step carried the echo of a past he could never return to, and though the world saw only weakness, inside his weary eyes a hidden fire was waiting to rise. Once, this house was filled with laughter, with warmth, with the voice of family. Now it stood as a broken shell, its walls burned, its windows shattered, its joy replaced by silence. An abandoned toy lay buried in the sand, the last reminder of a childhood ripped away. Rango stood in front of it, his small body trembling, as if the ruins themselves whispered the cruel truth. What was once his world was gone forever. The fire came without mercy. Flames devoured the wooden walls, smoke painted the sky black, and the screams of loved ones were swallowed by the night. Rango stood frozen, too small to save what he loved, his tears glowing in the reflection of the inferno. That night did not just burn his home, it burned away his innocence, leaving behind only ash, silence, and the unshakable scar of knowing that everything he held dear was gone. When the fire was gone, only silence remained. Rango kneeled in the sand, his tiny claws trembling as he buried a broken toy, his last piece of family, his last piece of comfort. The moonlight fell gently on his face, but it could not warm him. He was too young to understand why life had taken so much, yet old enough to feel the weight of sorrow. That night, he buried more than a toy. He buried his childhood. From then on, the stars became his companions, distant lights watching his pain, but never speaking back. He would lie on the sand dunes, eyes filled with tears, whispering to the sky as though it could return what he had lost. The vast heavens were beautiful, but to him, they were only reminders of how small and alone he truly was. Every night, the silence grew heavier, and every night, his heart learned how to survive without love. The desert was not kind. Days turned into endless trials of hunger and thirst. Rango's small body grew weak, his ribs showing beneath thin skin. Yet still he searched for scraps, chasing insects just to survive another day. His hands trembled, his eyes burned from the sun, but quitting was never an option. Each failure carved pain into his soul, each struggle hardened him. In hunger, he found his first teacher, and in suffering, his first lesson of strength. Even the living mocked him. Bigger creatures laughed at his frail body, pushing him into the sand, calling him weak, reminding him of his place. He clenched his tiny fists, anger and tears burning together in his eyes, but he was too small to fight back. The desert was cruel, but cruelty from others cut even deeper. That day, Rango learned the bitter truth: the world does not pity the weak, it devours them. That night, beneath the cold desert sky, Rango curled beneath a torn cloth, his tears soaking the sand. The stars above seemed endless, but none answered his cries. His heart ached, not only from hunger, but from a loneliness that seemed unbreakable. Every sob was a question: why me? Why this pain? But no answer came, and as his tears fell silently, something inside him began to change. His sorrow was becoming a vow. In that moment, Rango swore to himself never again. Never again would he be weak. Never again would he bow to pain. His claws dug into the sand. His eyes burned like embers under the moonlight. The desert had taken everything from him, but it had also given him something new: a fire, a purpose. That night, the broken child began to fade, and in his place, a fighter quietly began to awaken. With no teacher but struggle itself, Rango began to train. Push-ups on cracked earth, running across dunes, striking at shadows. Every movement was clumsy, every attempt painful. His body trembled, his arms gave way, and still he forced himself back up. The desert sun scorched his skin, the winds cut across his face, but he refused to surrender. He was not just moving his body, he was building his will, a strength that no one could ever take from him. Again and again he fell, collapsing in exhaustion, sand filling his mouth and lungs. But each fall was met with a rise, each failure with another attempt. The boy who once cried in silence was now shaping himself into something unbreakable. The desert, which had tried to kill him, was now his training ground. Every scar, every bruise, Every drop of sweat became proof that he was no longer the same fragile lizard. He was changing. One day, after hours of harsh training, he looked at his arm and saw a fresh scar. It burned with pain, but he did not cry. Instead, he smiled for the first time in years. That scar was not a mark of weakness, it was proof of survival. Each scar told a story, not of defeat, but of battles endured, lessons learned, strength earned. His body was no longer just his own, it was becoming a canvas of resilience. When the desert storm came, most would hide, but Rango stood tall. The winds roared. Sand slashed against his skin. Thunder cracked across the sky, yet he refused to bend. He spread his arms against the storm, letting the pain strike him, letting the fury of nature test him. For hours, he stood alone in that chaos, proving not to the world, but to himself that he could endure the worst and still remain unbroken. At dawn, when the storm had passed, Rango stood on the cliffs, the rising sun painting the sky with gold. His small figure was bruised, scarred, but his eyes carried something the desert could not crush: strength. He was no longer the child who once cried beneath the stars. He was the lizard who had survived fire, hunger, cruelty, and storms. From weakness he had risen. From pain, he had forged an unshakable will. And so, with the first rays of the sun warming his scarred skin, Rango took his first true step toward destiny. The desert stretched endlessly before him, but he did not see emptiness anymore. He saw a path, each grain of sand, each scar on his body, each memory of pain had brought him here. His story was no longer about loss. It was about becoming. From the ashes of yesterday, a legend was beginning to rise.